Hello and welcome to the King's Forum podcast show. I have a special guest back on the show again. Becca, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. Nice to see you back on the show.
Good to
Um,
be.
Boundaries, how have you set them up in your life or relationships, and how important are they to you?
Boundaries, I think, are the perfect foundation for anything that you set out to do in life because you need to know before you start a relationship, before you start anything, you need to know what are you willing to accept from this other person or from this thing that you're doing, and what are you not willing to accept. Boundaries in jobs are really important. And it will save you a lot of kind of upset in the long run if
Mm.
you are clear on where you stand from the get-go. So boundaries for me so if we just talk about like social media for just 1 second,
Yeah, no, it's fine.
boundaries for me are like on social media, knowing what kind of messages I will accept, what kind of messages I won't. So for example, it's no secret, a lot of people will get either kind of promotional approaching messages or inappropriate messages on social media. And setting your boundaries is kind of knowing, like, you know what, I don't deserve to be spoken to in this way. My boundaries don't allow me to be spoken this way, so I'm now going to remove them from that situation. And you don't need to engage or get in an argument, but just knowing that you're not willing to accept that behavior is
Yeah,
setting a
definitely.
boundary. And warning people, like if someone says something that you think is disrespectful or rude towards you in any kind of context, just say to them, listen, I don't appreciate you speaking to me like that. This is your one and only warning. You need to stop. And if they respect you and your energy, then they're going to listen to that. But I think any kind of healthy thing in life, you're going to need to set boundaries. So for my relationship, I told him exactly what I wanted and what I didn't want in a relationship.
Mm.
He communicated that with me like straight on. 3 years later, we're still together and we're buying a house. So I think it's really clear to have that communication when it comes to boundaries and loving yourself enough to actually have the confidence to set them, because you absolutely have every single right to say what you do and don't want. So when it comes to the past with me, I've probably only started being really serious with my boundaries maybe the last year or two in regards to social media and my whole life rather than just my relationships. And it's about loving yourself enough to know this is where I want my life to be, and it's not going to be this way if I don't voice my opinion. So please, 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 if you're watching this, don't ever, ever, ever be afraid to voice your opinion or what you want, because it's not selfish, it's a necessity that you should put across.
Oh, 100%. So what type of impact does these new boundaries you set up actually had on you and your life?
Incredible impact. My life's completely changed. So for me, the type of people I used to attract into my life before, whether it was friendships, relationships, work colleagues, it was so negative. They were judgmental, they were toxic, they were negative, and I was too afraid to speak up and say, I don't like how you're speaking about this person. I don't like the energy that I'm getting from you. I was too scared to say that. And as a result, I was getting negative. I was feeling drained, and it negatively impacted my life. Setting my boundaries now and not being afraid to say, listen, I like you as a person, but I don't appreciate what you're saying and I don't want to hear it. So I'm going to remove myself from the situation. It protects my energy. It protects my mental well-being, right? Because you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. Imagine if you didn't set boundaries around those people and they're negative all the time and you're just like, gosh, I need to go to sleep after that one conversation, right? So I think setting boundaries has made such a positive impact on my life, because I'm now around people that I love being around. They're positive, they're ambitious, they're my people. And boundaries allow you to go and find your people. There's no way I would be in the, because like I'm in the process at the moment. Me and my partner have just got a mortgage, we've reserved our house, it should be ready in November. I would not be in that position if I wasn't willing to go, you know what, this kind of house, that's not in my level of what I want, or maybe I don't trust this person. I went through several mortgage advisors. I didn't trust until I found one that respected my boundaries, respected what I wanted to get, and equally he told me what he wanted, and we built that working relationship. And I think that's important, again, in any part of life. So boundaries are probably one of the most important aspects of my life now.
Yeah, I think boundaries are super important for everyday life, like you said, life and relationships, especially as a person. Me personally, I think setting boundaries for me is important to protect my energy, protect my emotional state, as well as my physical and my mental state as well.
What boundary, can you talk about what particular boundaries you would set up normally? If it, let's say, for instance, it's a friendship, what would meeting someone new and starting up a new friendship, what boundaries would you put in place?
I think it's best to know who you are. Like, what do you expect from this friendship? And you get those people who are people pleasers. If you're that type of person, when you go into a new friendship, like, I think it's really important to not bring that to the friendship, because when people automatically already know that you're that kind of person, you kind of set yourself up to be used. So I think you have to get used to saying no and being comfortable to say no to things, and keep people at arm's length till you get to know them and build up that trust slowly and slowly.
I hear that. Is boundaries a new thing for you, or is it something you've always thought of?
Nah, I think since the last year, so since I've been on this journey on as becoming Virtuous Vibes and starting my own business and really finding myself, I never used to set boundaries. So I was literally that people pleaser that would never say no to anyone, always saying yes, even though it wasn't something that was aligned with me. My mind be saying no, my heart saying no, but the words that are coming out my mouth is yes, because I was always afraid to say no, because I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want people to think bad of me or be like, oh, I'm not reliable. So I always said yes, no matter what. And I think now I'm at a state where I'm really comfortable with myself and being able to say no. It gives me more power over my life and more control over what I'm doing, where I'm going. And everything I do is more aligned with myself.
So talk to me about boundaries. Why are they important to you?
So they're important because the energy that you have is so unique, it's so sacred and powerful. And so to fully be in the presence of your energy is to understand you. It's to have moments of clarity and moments of inspiration, intuition, and boundaries make that possible.
Okay.
In life, I find that there's lots of people who don't feel powerful and they go through life feeling disempowered and unhappy. And so boundaries are the game changer. They change the game that you're in.
Okay. So is this something new that you've started to do recently, or have you always put up some sort of boundaries, whether it's in friendships or relationships?
I think boundaries have always been like an issue with me. And it's taken me a long time to realize that I needed to for years and years, put boundaries in place, because I think that's where I can pinpoint there's parts of my life where it kind of just fell apart because I was giving myself too much away to other people. Like, for instance, the job that I just left, I was giving myself too much to my managers, and coming out of that place, I realized I kind of lost myself, and I lost aspects of myself that I really enjoyed, and just being able to live as well. And I realized that in that place, my manager always had this vision of me being what he wanted me to be, but I have my own ideas, and having boundaries where you could contain your energy and you really focus on where you want to go, then if you're doing that, that's all, you're always going to succeed. Whereas if you don't have those boundaries, it's always going to you know, fall apart. You're always going to come across some sort of issue.
So what type of impact has it had on your life, having these boundaries of recent years in place?
It's had a huge impact. So for instance, the place I live now, is really calm, and I've put in these boundaries where I've decided to live in a place where I feel safe. I feel safe to express myself, and I'm surrounded by people who love me, who respect me, who look after me, because I never had that before when I was living with friends. And so with that, it was very tricky because I'm also an empath. So I pick up on everyone's emotions. And if you don't have boundaries, then you constantly feel swamped with everybody else's, and you can't tell which is your emotion and which is somebody else's. So you may be going down like a different street than you thought you were actually going.
Oh yeah, boundaries are so important to me. To be honest, for a long time, I didn't really understand or think of boundaries as something important. I always sort of thought that boundaries is something kind of like a stubbornness or like an inability to be flexible. So for me, it was like, you know, you have to be open-minded, you have to be flexible, you have to bend over for people. So I always was like a people pleaser. I wanted to please everyone. I wanted to make sure everyone's happy.
Yeah.
And after that, very often I was drained. I was disappointed because people wouldn't give me the same service or the same, you know, nothing was reciprocated in the same way. So I was like, why I have to do those things for people when people aren't doing that for me? And for a long time, that was my thinking. And then I just understood that, you know, without boundaries, people not going to understand how you want them to be, to treat you. So we teach people how we want them to be, you know, treated, and the other way around from the early start, really, when we meet them. And it's so important to, you know, to show, you know, this is what I'm cool with and this is what I'm not cool with. So everyone's happy. It's, you know, it's everywhere really. With the businesses, for example, when two businesses start collaborating together, you know, they meet and they discuss the expectations, the boundaries, what they are liking, what they're not, how they want communication to be going forward, and so on, with so many other things. But people between people, especially like when it comes to relationships, forget that, you know, obviously it's difficult to sit and have a meeting. Let's have a meeting, and this is how I like to be communicated, and these are my boundaries. But at some point you'll have to voice that, and you have to explain and show, you know, what is important to you, what you're cool with, and what you can't, what you're not going to tolerate. So yeah, that took me a while, to be honest, and it actually happened recently, last few years, that I started to be like, okay, you know, if I'm not going to do anything, people are just going to walking all over me. You know, at work, people are throwing additional work and saying, oh, Dags will do this, you know, or someone will do something not very, you know, nice to me, and they'll be like, oh, Dags is cool, you know, she'll understand. So that started to be kind of like a repetition, and I was like, you know what, that's, you know, something needs to be done. I need to be clear. I need to be sometimes uncomfortable and voicing things that we maybe don't want to, saying no, and that definitely helps with that.
So talk to me about the difference, kind of how much of a difference has boundaries made to your life, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think like now when I think about boundaries, I think of them as self-care and self-love, because we obviously, you know, we have to protect ourselves, our energy. We obviously have so many things going on in our life, and if we're going to be giving and giving and giving and not actually taking anything back, you know, it's very draining. So you have to look at this as kind of like a self-care, rather than, you know, I want to be, I don't know, mean to people or anything like that. Or I just, you know, like I never liked those kind of people when they would be treating, if someone treated you badly, they will be equally treating you badly. maybe not in that way, but you definitely have to obviously explain. And also living in the UK, I understood that we're all coming from different backgrounds, cultures, different upbringings, and something that is obvious to me might not be obvious to the other person. So I have to explain, you know, this is what I like or don't like, and this is cool with me. And sometimes we just come with assumptions and think, you know, this is fine because it's fine for me, so it must be fine for that person, but not exactly true all the time. So I think that, you know, helped me with form, you know, when it comes to like relationships, you know, better communication, understanding. Even if there is a disagreement, let's have a discussion, but then you clear the air and it's fine, and the other person understands that next time I'm not going to cross that line. Unfortunately, the boundaries are not visible. We're not going
That's
around with like a fence around us and, you know, you can't cross this. You have to, it only comes from a communication and various situations. And you also can't just be like, before anything happens, to voice, oh, by the way, this is cool with me, this is not cool. It usually happens when something happened, when another person did something that maybe you wasn't cool with, and then you can have that conversation and sit down, discuss, and say, you know what, like, I understand, you know, this will, you know, what happened, but next time this is not cool with me. I like, you know, clear communication. I like this, or I don't like to be treated in this way, or you have to respect my time, anything like that.
cool. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No worries.